Over the weekend, there was an anti-Islamophobia rally here in Calgary in response to M103, the motion that condemns what the Liberals call systemic racism and religious discrimination of Islam that some see as an attack on free speech. There weren't very many Muslims there at the event, though, maybe 3 or so. It was mostly Antifas wearing masks because they're too cowardly to show their faces that dominated the steps of City Hall, mainly to swear into a megaphone because that's super edgy. Seriously, Antifas are kind of this weird mix of thinking that they're anti-establishment while being ultra-politically correct. They're champagne socialists that say stuff like, "I hate capitalism," while Snapchatting using an iPhone. You know the type. Anyway, they totally hijacked the rally, and I wanted to know why they were there. I wanted to know what kinds of anti-Islamic stuff was going on in Calgary that made them want to show up. Here's what they said.
I'm not sure about big ones, but I know for a fact that people, even just walking down the street, will be criticized just because they're Muslim or they're whatever. Yeah.
I mean, there's been writings on mosques and hate speech and things like that, and that's just unacceptable. It's not what Canada should be known for, and don't agree with it.
I don't actually know. I don't know.
Okay, so most of them didn't know if there was even any incidents except that one lady. So that means most of them didn't really know why they were even there or didn't have a reason to be there. Of course, there was no rally for the Catholic Church in Calgary that's been vandalized, and I didn't see them all protesting when actual violence occurred when Jewish Calgarians got beat up in the streets by pro-Hamas supporters. What a bunch of hypocrites. Apparently, hatred only applies to certain groups. You know what else was hypocritical? At a rally against hatred, this guy got up on the steps of City Hall and said, "Well, I'll let you watch."
The Rebel is a white nationalist organization that is trying to help advance Islamophobia and create a white Canada. They've been fostering division in Canada, and we cannot accept it. So if they come up to you and try to ask you some questions, tell them to fuck off.
Yeah, I guess they didn't get the memo that my boss is a Jew. And because nothing says screw hatred like asking people to spew targeted profanity at someone. And at a rally against hate, I've never seen so many signs filled with profanity and people shouting cuss words. Look at what this guy's idea of a peaceful protest is.
Spreading misinformation.
That is
spreading
not the
hate.
Canada that they
What
want.
misinformation are we spreading?
The Canada
Can you
they
give me a
want
specific
with
example,
their
or-
old
You guys are the reason that there's a large group of nationalist, racist assholes here today.
There's also a large group over here.
The Canada they want.
Yeah, this
a
group is
white,
peaceful. That group over there is hateful.
I don't hear those people telling me to
almost
fuck
undoubtedly
off.
straight.
Well, the
Canada
people here telling you to
that
fuck
does not
off
have room
speak for me as
for
well.
anyone
Get out of here.
else. That is not the Canada I was promised.
Get outta here.
That is not the Canada that I swore an oath.
And look at this guy. He thinks the way to combat hatred is to, quote, take them out.
The best way to fight intolerance is to take them the fuck out.
So the answer to discrimination is now violence in the minds of the tolerant left. Actually, I was talking to this lady who was on the anti-Islamophobia side. She said she's an atheist, but was there to support her friends that were scared to wear their hijabs. She was actually pretty reasonable, even though I didn't agree with some of the things she was saying, and her objective was to open up dialogue. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of our conversation, this guy draped a flag over her face to block me from talking to her.
It's absolutely wrong.
Okay,
What these people are
so
doing
you
is wrong.
agree with me on that?
Yes, we
Okay.
can agree with
Right?
that. And would you agree with me?
Oh, no,
sorry.
no.
Why are you covering her up?
Would you agree
She's
with me
fine
that
with being interviewed.
the Masjid Toronto?
She was actually willing to talk to me and was getting annoyed at the misbehaving activists for not being civil. So the people that these guys are trying to virtue signal for were even turning on them. Meanwhile, at the pro-free speech counter-protest just meters away, there were no signs with profanity, but messages warning against M103, that motion that I was talking about that condemns Islamophobia, and some placards displayed messages of support for freedom of speech. Here's what those attendees, including Bernard the Roughneck, had to say about the rally.
Canada is founded on the precept that we all have equal rights, inalienable rights, and we're free to worship, and so when I see people that have signs that say things like ban Islam, I just have to shake my head at how stupid it is, because that goes exactly against what we stand for here in Canada. And I don't think anything could be dumber than thinking that because you have a European background or whatever, that your way of life should be privileged above someone else's. It's a free country. You don't got to respect people, but you have to tolerate them as long as they tolerate you and don't impinge on your rights.
This isn't about race, it isn't about religion, it isn't about anything. It's about keeping Canada the way we fought and our ancestors fought to get Canada. That we welcome everyone, but under our Canada Act.
I think this guy summed up the sentiment of what's going on in the world right now.
We're at the point in society now where we need to be able to stand up against these certain political views, where we can't have a conversation anymore. We're too intolerant to even have these views. That's why we have these people screaming back and forth at each other. I'm a white person, look at me. I'm considered a racist and a white nationalist because if I go against someone's agenda, I must be against them completely, or against their skin color or whatever. All these different arguments come up and they make no sense.
This group of disruptors is mostly made up of kids and university students that hopefully eventually grow out of this phase when they have to become responsible adults and pay taxes and take care of their families. But for now, they truly symbolize the reasons why people are turning away from progressives. They're loud, irrational, intolerant, and have an alarming disregard for the truth. And normal people see that. They shout anyone that disagrees down and erroneously target people as racist. They ignore real issues and are just all around belligerent. All of this behavior was totally predictable, and we've seen it countless times now. I don't believe for a second that they care about discrimination, and I have to be honest, I hope they keep acting this way, because the more they do so, the more they drive people away from their cause. Progressives love to demonize people using identity politics. Add phobia onto any word, and they can use it to strike the fear of being racist into normal people that are critical. Radical Islamic terrorism is the biggest problem in our country and across the world. It's a problem that Canadians should be concerned about, and you don't need to take my word for it. Just ask CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, that just released a report stating that terrorism and extremists are considered to be the biggest threat to Canadian national security. What do the Liberals want to do about it? Introduce a motion condemning criticizing Islam. The government's #1 priority is keeping its people safe. How is our government going to do so when they've just taken the first step in silencing all of us for being critical of the biggest threat facing us today? They'd rather virtue signal with a motion than make our national security their #1 priority. For the Rebel.media, I'm Holly Nicholas. Thanks so much for watching. If you support free speech and are against Motion M103, which is basically the first step in outlawing the criticism of Islam, make sure to visit freedomtooffend.com and sign our petition today.